Hello, my friend. Welcome back to another episode. This is the podcast of all podcasts. Podcast. Can you say podcast without sounding like peh? Man, it is such great weather in Bangalore. I just love it. It's one of those things which just makes you happy. And I like the weather when it's gloomy, it's a bit windy, it's rainy. And I know people are like, yeah, no, I like the sun. I like the sun as well. Who doesn't like the sun? I'm a being. I'm a cellular structure that likes to vibrate with the solar radiation. None of that shit. No, let's not go down there. You know what happened? Excuse the burp. But my wife took our little baby to her mother's house. Not like she ran away. She went to her mother's house, and I was like, oh cool, I'm gonna be a bachelor, I'm gonna chill, I'm gonna rage. And I couldn't. I not like I'm like trying to be all like holy and that, but I actually wasn't like, yeah, I was like, the thought of it was, yeah, I'm gonna do something crazy, go out, but I was just like, yeah, I'm not saying like, I'm one of those hands-on stay-at-home dads kind of thing, but I was just like, you know what, I actually found a nice balance. I can do my own thing at the same time, help out. And it was quite a nice realization, I must say, so myself. But it's one of those strange times, dude. It's everything feels like, I keep talking about this episode. I don't want this episode or any episode to sound like it's a doomsday podcast where I'm just like, shit, we have no future as mankind. But I think a few people need to go. About a good 3.5-4 billion. And I'm okay if I'm one of them, but I just feel we need to ease up. Like, think about it. Like, if a cafeteria is overpacked, whatever, it may be the best chef, maybe the best food, maybe the best ingredients, whatever going, but you're going to be in someone's armpit. And I think we just are in a world where we're in too many people's armpits. And yeah, you can't live well being in someone's armpit. I think we have. And also I feel there are too many armpits in the world, not just people, but armpits specifically. And I mean armpits like, it's an analogy, oh my God, big word, for places. I think we need to get rid of some places, do something with them. I don't know. I'm not going to drop any plans because I don't want to be held accountable later going, oh, Sandeep had a plan and some fucking crazy despot takes that plan. Now, I'm not saying my plans are that good, but what if? There's always a what if, right? I don't want to get popular for the wrong reasons and become like a celebrity who someone's stolen an idea of getting rid of people for. This podcast does not endorse any of that shit, so I'm not going to do any of that. But it sometimes gets a little scary. Like, what are we going to do in 50 years with the city you live in, or the town you live in, or the home you live in? Will you have it? Will you have water? Will you have air? I don't know. So yeah, do you want to save the planet, or just fuck it, rub one out, be happy, just have another beer, fuck it, right? It's very easy to think that way. But yeah, man, it's a very crazy imbalance that we're in. Too much anger, too much money, too much pleasure, too much stimulation, too much information. TMI. We live in a world of TMI, baby. But every other day, someone's getting tased, someone's getting shot, someone's not getting shot, even though they deserve to. So it's just crazy. Yeah. Sometimes you want to just get out of the noise. Yes, please do save it. Thank you very much. But yeah, I'm trying to just immerse myself. See, the problem is, if you immerse yourself too much in your own conversation, then you kind of lose the plot. You're like, what the hell? You get too obsessed with your own mind and your own thing. I think it's good to have some external influence, but it's also good to manage that external influence and not worry too much about it, right? Like, some people are just like, I'm going to argue with him about what's going on in the Ukraine. Like, fuck it. It's not in your control. But, I'm going to go into today's conversation with Mr. Frederik Imbo, because we speak a lot about what I'm just kind of trying to be expressing and pondering, because he's a communications coach, he's an actor, and he's a human being who I met for the first time on this recording, but we really connected on multiple levels about various things. I mean, we both in some ways are entertainers. He's an actor, I'm a comedian, he's a communications coach, I do this podcast, and beyond that, we kind of talk about these things that people are facing with this idea of freedom, this idea of selfishness, this idea of looking out versus looking in, and so many more things that I feel you will really connect with. And yeah, it was a real pleasure talking to Frederik and getting to know him, and hearing about his experiences, his stories, and his opinions. So I'm sure you can find someone who you can share this with, because I'm sure it'll benefit them as well. As always, I really appreciate you being here on this podcast week in, week out. I will come back with another one next week. Till then, enjoy the conversation with Mr. Frederik Imbo, only here on the SoapyRao Show. Till next time, goodbye, God bless, take care of yourselves. Catch you on the other side. See, messed it up there. Catch you on the other side. Cheers. Mr. Frederik Imbo, welcome to the SoapyRao Show. How are you this morning for you?
Good morning, Sandeep. I'm really good. I feel energetic. I feel happy, joyful. So I'm totally yours and happy to be your guest in your show.
Fantastic. You know, it's really good to hear that. I think it's Monday morning. So when you say words like happy and content, it's good, because most people are kicking and screaming, going, I have to go back to work. So it's good. So how do you spend your typical Monday morning, or typical morning, or typical start of the week? And maybe you can tell people where you are and how you spend your time.
I'm in Belgium, Europe, and I normally wake up and I do some sports exercises. Afterwards, I grab my coffee, and normally there is a workshop or a presentation I'm giving then that day. Now it's July and it's August, so now there is a summertime. There is not that much of outside activities for me, outside of my house, So I work in July and August mostly from home, and I prepare new stuff, or I check a bit new texts and things like that.
So the thing is, I haven't been fortunate enough to travel to Belgium, but you hear things, of course, 2-3 things that your country or your people are popular for, and of course some of that is beer and chocolate and coffee, but I want to get past that and understand, because right now I think across Europe there's a big wave. Various things happening, right? With the war in Ukraine, there are people turning inward. There are like with immigration in Europe, there are a lot of people turning inward. So Europe, typically, from what I know, at least from what I've heard from people I've met, it was a lot more accepting and was a lot more kind of, while it was a collection of countries which are so diverse and different, and people have different languages and cultures, food is so different, it almost feels like now people are, correct me if I'm wrong, but it almost feels like people are closing borders and trying to look at themselves and kind of highlight their national identity, their national pride, and you have all these various undercurrents which are taking shape. So what is the kind of I think the climate, I think one is the physical climate, because there's also a heat wave running through Europe right now. But what is the sentiment right now around you? Because you also mentioned before the conversation that you live in the Flemish part of Belgium. But what is the sort of mentality, if you want to call it, the vibe of the people around you and in your country?
It's quite hard to generalize, of course, because I think that the polarities all over the world, whatever the polarity is, grows. So in this case, we were talking about being very solidar and accepting new people, welcoming them, being generous, being helpful to welcome other people. And at the other side, there is a fear of people who do not want newcomers to let in, or what will they bring with them, and what will they do? And people are afraid. Sometimes I think it's a general feeling that everyone once in his life has, to protect yourself against new and especially strange things. People are afraid of everything that is strange, the unknown. So in this case, I just heard on the radio this morning in the news that in a center where people from Ukraine arrive here in Belgium, normally they just are there for, let's say, 1, 2, max 3 days, and then they have access to a house or a family that will welcome them. Well, very typical. In the beginning of the crisis, so many families were happy and willing to accept those Ukrainian families. Now, I heard in the news that people have sometimes to stay there for days and weeks because apparently no one is willing to take them in their house. So this shows very easily that, of course, in the beginning, a lot of people are willing to accept and to help people, but to a certain extent. I think that it has to do with needs, which is a very important word in my life, also as a coach. Yeah. It has to do with needs. So on the one hand, people are willing to help each other and to contribute to solidarity. On the other hand, people are afraid to have to give too much, or at least to think that if they would give more than they would like to give, they would be in jeopardy themselves. So it's a balance, of course, between giving, wanting to be there for some other people, and on the other hand, being afraid to keep what you want to keep and to protect what is yours and your possessions. And
no, it's very fair, because I can sit here asking you this question, and someone like in Europe is like, oh yeah, but you must understand in India it's hard, and you probably empathize. But while I understand that India is a lot larger when it comes to many things. When it comes to the population, when it comes to disparity, we have much more severe issues in some sense. But I'm sitting here talking to you, and in many ways, I can distance myself from the problem, right? Because I don't have to wake up in the morning thinking about where I'm going to get my next meal. I'm not going to worry about my house falling apart, because I think in every country, whether it's a European country, a Western country which is developed, or a developing country, I think there are populations, of course the percentages change, but there are people who are in some way not affected by a lot of the problems. And I feel there are some people who are constantly being thrown under the bus because of some other people's bad decisions, right? And usually that's people in the lower segment of the population when it comes to socioeconomic disadvantage. But Europe, or I don't want to generalize, as I said, I don't want to generalize Belgium as one large or one person or 10 people. But there's always been a sense that Europe, compared to America, or compared to some other countries, the countries in Europe have a little bit more of a balance, whether it's with taxation, whether it's more care provided for the people across the board when it comes to education, healthcare. There is some semblance that everyone, irrespective of how much they earn, will get a basic access to dignified life. And is that still prevalent? And if that is the case, how did that shape your mindset? Because I want to talk about what you do, but I want to also get people listening right now to understand how a sort of environment or how a society can shape a person's perspective.
Again, I think it's really very individual, but I think that for every Belgian, it's so normal to trust the fact that they will always be supported. So when they are ill, they get a financial compensation because they don't have a salary. When they don't have work, they also get a kind of some money to however be able to still live. Yeah, and that's wonderful. Of course, that's. I'm very proud to live in a country where we can help and support each other. Yeah, that's amazing. At the same time, everything that you get becomes one day normal, and for so many Belgians, it's normal that they get it, and that they even think, or even they believe, I have the right. And I think when we look at the world in a more bright perspective, a larger perspective, I think that's a disease of so many countries and so of this now today's culture. Let's have a look at Corona. Corona is everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't want to stay at home.
Yeah.
I want to go out because I have the right to go out. You hear it so many people say, and I think we should not judge other people. Let's have a look at ourselves.
Yeah.
I have that tendency as well to feel quite selfish and to look at reality out of a selfish perspective and to think, hey, but what is the impact on me? If you look, for example, I will not say that I would love to live in China, but if you look at the culture in China, the government says, listen, everyone stays at home right now. And of course, people don't like it either, but they obey. What I try to say is that in our country, it became so normal that everyone is supported and put in the middle of the attention that people claim that right. Everyone should take into account my needs. And of course, that's a very big pitfall. If you're always spoiled to get what you want, to be sure that you will have no financial problems, that you get supported by how you really think that you have today's idea is that people have the right to do whatever they want, and that's a very big pitfall. It's a hedonism pitfall. It's believing that you're entitled to get everything what you want to get, and it's a pitfall.
And the sense of individualism, right? That the individual is.
Yeah.
I think that's a value that especially America has faced a hard time with, because while you're talking from everything from wearing masks to vaccines to owning guns, when the entire message of the narrative has been like, oh no, what you want, you have the right to the First, the Second Amendment, whatever it may be, and then you go, no, but you can't own a gun because kids are being shot. They're like, yeah, but it just sounds like hypocrisy. You told me I can do whatever I want. Now you're telling me I can't do whatever I want because you asked me to sit at home, And in some way, like countries like India and China, which, while of course I think India might have some more liberties than China, I don't know, I haven't been. I think we just have this, I wouldn't say a herd mentality, but this we do have this sense of not sticking our heads up above a certain group, right? We don't want to, while it may be a disadvantage, I think like in a lockdown such scenario, it did work out. But the disadvantage being that we don't want to go and take too many risks in the fear of failing and being ostracized by the group. So I think there's a flip side to both. But do you notice anything different post pandemic opening up? Because as I said, I don't know much. I've never been to your country, and but what is the nature of the post-pandemic beast, if you want to call it? Like, what has it done to people? Has it scared them? Has it made them more united? What's the kind of sense you get when you look around?
I think, again, both senses. On the one hand, it made them more solidar to others and taking into account others, thinking about the group on the one hand. But that is because those people were already people who are very focused on the group and not on the individual. Yeah. And on the other hand, people who are focused on the individual rights are even more individualists, I think. I was this weekend presenting in Czech Republic on a festival, and everyone was just so happy to do again what they want to do. So coming close to people, not having to wear mouth masks. And on the one hand, of course, that's fine. It's the true feeling of feeling free again. Yeah. But actually, is this real freedom? Because if your freedom depends on I always want to do whatever I want to do, well, if you think about it, I would call this actually the opposite of freedom. It's dependency. If I want always to do what I ever want to do, and I only want to wear a mouth mask because I want to protect myself, well, that's very individual, and that's very sad. If it comes to what this planet needs, I think we all need to very consciously say And if we need a system for that will help us, because I personally believe we should be helped by the government. I think we should all take in a bit what our freedom would say as enjoying and benefiting of the world and our life. I think we should give in a bit more of what the individual preferences is, to think a bit more about the bigger context.
So you're basically, if I'm not mistaken, what you're saying is that the freedom is very selfish and very sort of isolated to your needs, your preferences. But what you would like to see is this sense of giving up some of what is so important to you for the larger good. Or, that's such a strange thing that we do, because on one side we have all these things like the climate crisis, or you have people going with the climate strike, and kids in schools going and demonstrating against large corporations that are ruining our planet. But it just almost feels like, as you said a couple of times over since we started speaking, that there's always two sides to it, right? And the two sides are much more contrasting in the conversation today. It's either I hate immigrants or they're going to live in my house. It's either or, There's no middle ground.
Yeah.
But I mean, and there's not really a question. I mean, it's just sort of this. I'm trying to understand what scenario we're creating for ourselves, because I'm sitting here going, okay, I don't say, for instance, I don't want to take or rather, I don't want to shop on Amazon because I think the way they treat their employees is horrible. I think that the packaging is not sustainable. I think the products are made in a sweatshop where labor is being exploited. And I think all the stuff that they use for their products is bad plastic, which is good. So I have 3-4 arguments which prevent me or make me a person who's against Amazon, just for example. But I mean, is that as an individual being selfish? Is that me being contributing? Like, because I'm trying to understand, like, when we need to, as you rightly pointed out, there needs to be a mandate, right? It needs to be a collective effort. Like, how can, say, 1 million people come together and make sure there's no plastic being used in the grocery stores in a town? But then one person who controls such a large corporation go and just undermine all of that. So, as I said, it's not really a question for you, but it's just kind of trying to understand, because you live in a much smaller country where people might assume, it might be easier to implement certain, policies or certain initiatives which are favorable to the environment. But I feel it's such an important point where our freedom itself ends up becoming our own kind of, I wouldn't say our stumbling point, because we kind of have this idea that I deserve something, it's me, and the moment it's a problem, then it's them,
Very true.
So it's interesting, because you're a coach and you talk to people and you help people through their problems. But it's maybe sorry to interrupt you. I really would love. It's a total illusion, but I would love there is only one country in the world, and that is the world. It's even not a country, and there is a system that is powered by love, and that is powered by taking each other into account and by fairness. And on every single form, there is no discussion on fairness. Everyone should have the same rights, not necessarily exact the same income, but however, we are rich enough on this planet to support everyone and to not have the biggest disasters as we have them right now. And kind of, it should not be for me a place where hedonism is the leading culture, but more enjoying life and a society that encourages value-oriented living. When you do something good for other people, it's value-oriented. And whatever it is, your doing good can be being very gentle, because you're just a very radiant and gentle person. For others,
it's educating. For others, it's cleaning. For others, it's teaching. For everyone, if everyone was more encouraged to live a valuable life instead of a life where we are focused on getting, receiving, wanting to have more and more and more, I really would. Of course, when I say this, I joke about myself. But it's even when it's illusion, when it is an illusion, it is really a dream of me, a dream where we could say sometimes to ourselves, I know I would love now to have 100 or 1,000, but no, 5 is enough. And why is 5 enough? Because we want to have 5 for everyone. And whatever that 5 is, money, place, resources, whatever it is, let's make it organized that everyone has almost as possible the same rights.
I mean, that sounds like something which would be really, really good for people. But at the same time, we as humans, I feel, don't really always work towards something that's good for us. I think we're kind of self-destructive in some way.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I think what you said makes sense. I mean, you based on not this system of greed and this self-fulfilling idea that more is better, and success and putting down others at the cost, or putting the cost of your success is someone else's failure. But I mean, do you get a sense around you in your community? Because as we've sort of said a couple of times, we can't really look on a macro level here, right? We can't say Indians in general are, or Belgians in general are more sustainable. But you can tell through small pockets, and I think the only way we can kind of look and make any kind of positive impact is by the people we associate with, right? That's the 1 or 2 or the 5 or 6 people we know, and not on going and trying to reach out to 1 million people, because that just gets harder and the messaging gets more difficult. But from the group you hang out with, because of course you are who you are, is there a sense where people are more willing to take a different story and fit their life into it, or rather rewrite their story to not resemble the typical, I'm going to get a job, I'm going to get so much money, I'm going to get a bigger house, have a huge saving which I can retire and then go on holiday? Is that changing, and you're seeing people more living for the moment, people who are living for doing what they enjoy and not just going into the rat race?
I think so. Exactly the last one. But again, here you said enjoying, and enjoying is, again, from my perspective, there's nothing wrong with enjoying.
Yeah.
But when the percentage of wanting to enjoy always wins, there are benefits, of course, because you're a more gentle person, you're a more positive person. At the same time, again, here, wanting to enjoy always will never live a sustainable, happy life. Although I do believe that people, to me, it's all about consciousness. Whether your consciousness is developing or not, when you're not developing your consciousness, I think you are in a trap to always want more and do less. Receiving more, doing, contributing less. And I really think we should be more encouraged and encourage our peers more to think more consciously about themselves. Why am I judging right now? Okay, I'm judging. Yeah, that's right. I'm judging. I'm judging because I'm afraid. And is it correct to be afraid? No, it's not really very afraid. It's not really very correct. So okay, let me stop doing this. It feels as, oh yeah, this is good. And I truly believe that there is a source of good. Some call it God, some call it love, some call it the laws of the universe, but there is some justice in the universe. And I really believe that we should encourage each other to go for that truth, for that love for that, taking each other into account, and try to make yourself a better version. It's easy. If you go from point A to point B, you always go closer to a possible point or further away from. The same goes with consciousness. If I do something, if I say something, if I eat something, do I get closer to growing of consciousness, or do I get smaller in consciousness? Do I get closer to love, or do I get more away from love? Do I get closer to fear? And I totally believe, instead of look my new car, look my new house, a new job, or you know what, I presented in Czech Republic and for 2,000 people, whoa, look at me. Yeah, the answer should be, yeah, okay, but what did you add? What did you add to the world?
What was the value of that talk to 2,000 people, not about how many selfies you took after?
Exactly. And it's something inside of me. I want to stop looking at other people and telling what they should do. I want to look more towards myself. I was talking with my boyfriend yesterday, and I said it to him, listen, sometimes I feel empty, and the emptiness is because I put nothing in myself. I was just putting in myself, enjoying and wanting to receive and having fun, which is good every now and then. If you have worked a whole day, you can absolutely lay down in the couch and just wanting to receive something. But if it becomes an attitude to always want to receive, it makes you an empty and lack of valuable person. And
would you say this need to receive can be also called the sense of self-entitlement?
Yeah,
right.
It goes all in the same direction. Huh?
No, because that's the thing. Just to add to your point, sorry for interrupting, is that if that's the case, right? People are in this place where if it's something wrong, they don't want to look within, and they want to sort of blame a situation or a circumstance or other people. But when it's something right, they want it to be theirs. When it's something good, it's there. It's this weird thing. Like, and I like what you said, when you are heading in a direction, you're closer to one point and further away from another point, right? And just as an example, like, if, I think this enjoying, I think, is essential, right? Because there's also within, say, the idea of spirituality, that you have the separation. Like, people are like, oh, I do this school of yoga, and the people who do that school of yoga are wrong. Like, you have this selfishness, or you have this individual thing, which is everywhere, right? Even when you look at something good, you're like, oh no, I'm a vegan, I'm healthier than you, you're a fruitarian. I mean, everything is good in itself, right? But there's this mindset which we are kind of being swamped by, where it's me who's right, and if it's wrong, it's because it's your problem.
Exactly.
And no,
it's toxic.
It's toxic, yeah. Because I had a person who's a recluse, who teaches at a certain school of philosophy and spirituality, and he was talking about how we have these kind of habits that make us much more connected to the animalistic tendencies in our body, which is, of course, fear and this addiction to food and sex and this idea of greed, which keeps us stuck to this particular thought process, where we are unable to look beyond that to this power you said, whether it's the universe, the universal design, God, or love, whatever the word that you choose to use. And if you think about it, like, it's very difficult for people, and the reason I'm sort of harping on this point is because you are a coach. You also spoke a few years back about this thing, which I want to get into, and that's why I want to understand what is this mindset that is more and more prevalent nowadays, which is about the selfish, which is about us, because you help people, and more importantly, you also spoke about this idea about don't take things personally. So can you kind of apply what you kind of coach people with, but also what you spoke about, and kind of put this situation in that context? Again,
here, the dynamic of what we have been spoken up till now is others should try to others should fulfill my needs.
Yeah.
And I totally believe, even when I sometimes forget it, I totally believe that we are responsible always for what we feel and what we need. If I feel sad, it's not because something happened, but it is because I react towards what happened in a sad way that makes me sad. If I am in a traffic jam and I'm sad, I can only be sad because I believe, no, I should have the right to be somewhere. And the traffic jam or the cars cannot prevent me from wanting to get what I want. So I will feel sad because I do not accept the reality as the reality is. When I say, okay, good, yeah, this happens. Sometimes you get in a traffic jam. I'm responsible for what I feel right now. I can just accept it as well. And how do I accept it? By saying, I'm willing to accept it. Yes, it's that easy.
It sounds
it's not always simple, but it's that easy. It's saying to yourself, how do I accept things? Well, by saying, I'm willing to accept this because I want to be a valuable person who wants to fulfill his own needs. So if you believe that other people are responsible for what you feel, that's the animalistic part of you were mentioning it, in ourselves. That is our autonomous nerve system that is triggered and that does not feel confident by what happens. This is a natural thing. We can, even with consciousness, you cannot change this primal thing. It's our reptile brain taking over. Every single moment, even in this interview, where people are listening to our voices, when you ask me a question and I respond and I say something, it goes for your system and my system. We think, is Sandeep saying something that gives me the idea of me being welcome in his world? And maybe the same goes for you. Is Frederik doing something that is helping me to connect with? If the listeners now judge to your voice and my voice, does this feel me being welcome or not? This is what we do all the time. When we are in a shop and the shopkeeper is not that friendly, not as friendly as we would love him or her to be, we have tendency to take it personally. How does it come? Because our autonomous nerve system is in stress, feels, I'm not welcome here. And apart from saying, okay, good, but what can I do to increase the chance that this person will react in a different manner to me? So solution-oriented. No, it's much more easy to take it personally and to be in our ego and to say, hey, the other one should not react like this. I will punish him for this. This is what we do. We punish the other person. We try to hurt them in a very subtle way. We will not always lash out. We will sometimes punish someone by giving them a silent treatment. Okay, if you do like this to me, you get a silent treatment. And it's out of the belief that we should always get what we want. It's our ego. Our ego wants to be right. I want what I want now. Instead of saying...
But aren't we being told as well? Like, because I think, can I add words like worth also being attached to welcome, or maybe even expectations that you are entering a situation and these ideas are reinforced by various things that you might be attracted to online, whether it's things you read, people you follow who say these things. So when you are, instead of saying, you know what, the only thing I have is control over what I feel, but instead of going into a scenario with that mindset, we're going, no, this is how it should be, and if it's not, I'm going to go and bitch it out on social media, and people are going to flock to me saying, this guy is so wrong, he's the victim, how dare he feel like that? Do you get the sense that more of that is happening?
Yeah, it has to do with all this feeling that you always want to be, that you always want to get what you want to get. It's even a pitfall.
Okay,
always wanting to get what you want to get is a pitfall for not getting what you actually need, being happy.
That's actually really interesting, because sometimes when we look back, right, whether your life or my life, and I might not have gotten what I wanted, it in fact worked out because it was not what I needed at that point in my life. And I think that's really well said, because so many times now when you get everything you want, the times you don't get it, it may be for a reason, but you're also blind to what you need. And more importantly, you can't handle rejection, which is so difficult for so many people, right? But can I just ask you, before I want you to talk about this idea of rejection and the idea of taking it personally, because I think while you might not get what you want, how do you handle what you can't get? But before that, I want to just ask you this. You know how all these platforms which are almost like yes men, right? Just saying, you're right, you're right, you're right, and you deserve this, and all the technology that drives videos that, either you want to say positive reinforcement, where people are like, yeah, you are the best, you're the man, all these things. What is the benefit? Because it's making people less resilient, it's making people less tolerant, it's making people less, as you said, the thing, you're making people more ego-based. What is the ulterior sort of direction this is heading in?
I love so much the idea of the British philosopher Alain de Botton, who has the magnificent School of Life. It's a platform you can receive almost every day wonderful tips, true tips about sustainably becoming happy and developing your consciousness.
Which platform, sorry?
The School of Life.
That's his amazing school of, that's his philosophy?
Yeah, that's his school. It's of course, it's not a real, it is a real school, but it's not a real school with students like children.
Of course, it's
with adults, it's a metaphor. But if you would YouTube online. The School of Life, believe me, you will get in a wonderful English and very well explained, nice explained.
Oh, lovely to hear that. Yeah, I think people listening would like to just check that out. After listening to the podcast, I don't have them to go right now.
Yeah, of course. But he says, and this is what inspires me, because now we both we are bashing a bit on social media, and people want to be acknowledged all the time and get recognition. And he says there's of course nothing wrong with wanting to be liked all the time.
Yeah,
that's no problem at all. It's a human characteristic to want. We are social animals. We want to be loved, taken into account, and acknowledged all the time.
Absolutely.
But there are two buts. One, of course, if you always want to be acknowledged by other people, then it might weaken your own capability to acknowledge yourself. Because sometimes we just need to be on our own and be responsible for meeting our needs in the most essential sense ourselves. We should sometimes really say, now I don't want that acknowledgement of other people. Now I will decide myself whether I think I did something good or not. Secondly, he says, and this is the crucial part, it's not about whether people want to be acknowledged all the time or not. It is about what we acknowledge people. Do we acknowledge people because they have a nice car, because they have a good job, because they have a better income, because they have so many likes on which platform? Then we get a poor society in terms of values. But if we had another way of liking each other, I want to give you a like because you are not judging. I want to acknowledge you because you really try to take responsibility for your own feelings. Hey, you know what? I want to acknowledge you because you, in silence, without anyone knowing it, cleaned the house. And this is amazing what you did there, because you help it to be more clean without even me realizing it, that you did all this effort. So if we Alain de Botton says, if we are focused more on acknowledging each other for valuable things instead of for materialistic or egocentric things, we might live in a society that is so much more valuable in the true sense of the word. So I do believe that I love the term. That's something I don't know where I read it, but I love the term. I would like to compare it with a tree. You talked about resilience. You have the idea of I'm looking for the words. It's Monday morning. I'm still a bit tired.
No, that's right.
I have it here. Voila. Fragile or anti-fragile. Are you fragile or are you anti-fragile?
Okay.
Fragile is like a vase.
Yeah.
When you are, if you touch it, if you deal with it a bit in a too violent way, it will break.
Yeah.
The problem is, the more you take care of not breaking the vase, the more fragile the vase becomes. And so if you look at a tree, for example, a tree is not fragile. It is the opposite. It is anti-fragile. Because every time the wind blows, the tree, just because of the wind blows, is invited to become stronger and stronger and stronger. Its branches under the soil are getting... the roots under the soil, not the branches, are getting stronger and stronger just because there is such a thing as the wind.
Because they've been pushed against their...
Exactly.
Yeah.
So setbacks, if you do not take them personally, will even reinforce you instead of making you weaker. If you take things personally and you see it as people are not having the right to treat you in this or this manner, you will become more and more fragile. If,
and
however, you look at it from
way.
another perspective, like, okay, this is a moment to mourn about the fact that I do not get what I want, and what is the invitation towards myself, again, to fulfill more my needs and to not take it personally, then you get more and more anti-fragile, stronger, because of what happens to you.
Would you... because as a coach, right? Can we talk about that? Like as helping people, because it's almost like if you go back to your point about being between two places, right? Closer to one, farther from the other. If you're on this path to maybe spiritual awakening or consciousness, you might say, you know what, everything that's happened, and this is something which is easier to do in hindsight than look ahead or look in the moment. It's everything that's happened, I'm glad it did, and it happened for a reason, because I am where I am and what I am and who I am because of those instances, those experiences, those things, those rejections that all shaped me. Even something like anxiety, or you're suffering from depression, and if you're able to go through, get proper help and go through that journey, you come out on the other side going, you know what, I needed that. But now, when you are sitting with someone who's experiencing various things that are keeping them out of balance, they're not feeling their best, they're not able to perform, they're not... And you tell them these words, which I just told you, like, oh, no, you have to get through this, and there is a certain design which is out there for you, and you have to just go about it and live life. And no one's saying sit under a blanket and wait for the tough times to pass so the sun shines and the good times are by your doorstep. But if you tell someone as a coach, oh, no, you have to experience anxiety or depression, they're probably not going to appreciate that too much, right? So how do you broach issues like things not going right, or resilience, or not being fragile, or things like rejection or failure with your clients or with people?
Of course, I will never advise them to be happy when they are sad or feeling joyful because they have a setback. But I can, however, help them to be more aware of the fact that if they focus on, I think in this and this and this way, I will feel So thus I will feel this or this or this. What we think will provoke what we feel. And if we want to feel more peace, we will have to develop and choose consciously for thoughts that will help us to feel peaceful. And also taking into account that we are responsible for meeting our needs ourselves. So to me, it's a solution-oriented way to look at it from this perspective. I accept what I cannot change, even when it's hard to accept. I say, okay, I accept that this is hard to accept. And all the energy that I did not waste against battling against the things that I could not change, I can use now to change what I can change. Even when I do not have the skill, the capability, the time, the money, the energy to try to fulfill this particular need I'm longing for so hard, I can do something else that will alleviate my pain of not getting what I previously wanted. So it's always the same. And secondly, do we always need to be happy? No. We need to, I think, we would have benefit to sometimes say, today sucks. Today is only a 1 out of 10 day. Today is a stupid day. Okay, I accept that, because my life cannot be filled with only 100 out of 100 days. No, sometimes it sucks. And we need to accept that. Everyone suffers. And instead of always, if the tree would say, no, the wind cannot blow now, it will never grow stronger. The tree should say, okay, now it's blowing. And, oh, you know what? I was already so tired of the last day where I also had to defend myself. And I really had to attach myself to the soil with my roots.
And after all that, someone came and pissed on me.
I was hoping for a calmer day.
Yeah,
but okay, today it's again another stormy, windy day, and I will manage it. I love so much the quote of Mother Teresa in India, who said, I really know that God would not give me any challenge that I could not fulfill. But, she said, I hope that actually he had a bit less confidence in me. Which is, of course, a humorous way to look at it. But
that's
I love
very
that.
Interesting that way of looking at it, right? That's almost like you're surrendering to something larger than you, saying that everything that's been dealt to me is been dealt for a reason, and that I have it in me to handle it. It may kind of seem that you're relinquishing your destiny, but at the same time, I think it gives strength, right? Like, if you look back, you could get over most of it, and you're here because you got through all of it, and the things that you couldn't get through helped you on another path, right?
Exactly. This is what the existentialists said. Life is actually, the freedom that we have is to see what we do with what was given to us. So when and it should not always be huge disasters, but if someone says or does something, actually sometimes it feels hurtful, sometimes it gives us joy, but in either way, what is the essence of life is what is our response to that? How do we react on that? And so I also like the play of the word responsibility with some imagination and not taking into account how it is written. Then we can look at it from another perspective. It's responsibility. It is the ability to respond to what happens to us. Someone says something, okay, how will I respond? Do I have the ability to respond in a loving way, or am I responding in a fearful and hostile way? That's the question. That's your answer.
Yeah, no, because we kind of are always aspiring to be a better person, right? Or a better version. When we run 10 minutes, we want to run 30 minutes. When we do, one job, or we get a entry into a company, we're like, I want to be CEO. It's always the next step. Instead of, as you said, instead of looking at what you have and responding to it, saying, you know what, this is the life I have. Why do I have to be like that girl who does, 3 hours of yoga? Or why should I be like the guy who's got 5 million YouTube subscribers? Like, we're always being consciously, or rather unconsciously, pulled in different directions, when what you just said is so, I mean, it's just enough, right? If you can manage that, wouldn't that just be perfect? Like, or rather just be what it is?
It is believing, when we get that instead of 2,000, we want 3,000. It's believing that this will bring us finally happiness.
Or that's all you need. You might, you as Frederik might need 500. I as Sandeep might need 670.
Exactly.
But I don't need 500. You don't need 670. I think.
Exactly.
But how do you tell someone that? I'm just sort of playing devil's advocate here, because yeah, it's all great, right? I mean, what we've spoken about, I love the idea. A lot of it makes sense, because I'm also seeking answers. More importantly, I'm trying to ask the right questions. But someone right now killing it on Wall Street, or killing it as a top end athlete, whatever it may be, right? And they're being idolized. They're being sort of held on this pedestal. Everyone wants to be them. Everyone wants to be around them. I mean, and at the other extreme, when we spoke about polarizing views, you have someone who's, shit out of luck. They just have, nothing's working. They've been fired because of the job that they had in the pandemic has been let go of. Nothing's working out. They're living in a cost of living crisis where everything's expensive. They have no money to feed their family. So I'm giving you two completely opposite scenarios. How do we apply any of this to that? Or maybe how can you sort of can you take people listening through maybe a couple of examples of that?
I would confront people with the choices they have made so far in their lives. And not even the big choices, but asking them, what kind of life would you ideally want to live? Okay. And if we try to copy paste this onto the past, did you live your life like this? Yes or no? And to what extent yes, and to what extent no? And can you now, looking back to what happened previously in your life, what were the consequences of your choices, and what made you sustainably happy, what made you sustainably proud, or what worked and what did not work? And why do you think it did not work? Was it because you had bad luck, or you didn't persist, or you did persist too much? What was it? And so to help, we are more intelligent than we think we are. We are the best. Everyone here listening to this podcast is the expert of his own life. Even when they do not know that much about themselves, you have the sources to know more about yourself. So you could take yourself as a science and to look, okay, in that situation, I reflected and reacted like this. Did it bring me joy? Well, yes. Maybe it's predictable to do this again. Or, oh yeah, I saw that I had 2,000 and suddenly I thought I wanted to have 3,000. But then I decided not to go for the 3,000 because I thought this is a pitfall. It's an ego pitfall. And you know what? At the end of the day, I was so happy that I did not go for the 3,000 because I just said, don't go into the pitfall of the ego. Be happy with the 2,000 you have. And there again, there is that alleviation, there is that peace, there is that harmony with yourself. Some people seeking for being happy all the time look at Buddhist monks or people who are on their mat doing yoga all the time. And they say, yeah, you meditate, it looks very boring. And of course, if you look from the perspective of always wanting to be joyful and happy, then of course it looks very boring. But who says that it should always be so joyful? It can sometimes also be a small river of happiness that goes very slowly from one place to the other, and living the life in a more deeper way instead of living the life in a more fast way.
Yeah, because it's almost like we are waiting for that beautiful summer day where the river's flowing through and it's perfect, it's clean, as opposed to almost realizing that, you know, it's our little stream which is going to be a part of the river and the ocean one day, and let's just enjoy how beautiful. It's flowing.
Yeah,
it's going to go over a couple of rocks. Yeah,
it's so beautiful. Yesterday we promised to each other, my boyfriend and me, first of all, we hope to live together a long life. But we promised to each other to read out loud the text of Gibral, I think it is. The text of, the river is afraid when it comes nearer to the sea, because the river is afraid to lose himself in that sea. Well, actually, when he comes into the sea, he suddenly is aware that actually he became the sea. And so to surrender, to give yourself over in that bigger part, being part of a bigger whole, is to me quite crucial, to have that same sense of trust and confidence in what comes.
And that sort of ties up to what you said at the beginning, right? That we feel that our freedoms are so important, but they almost are selfish, and we all have to do our part. And it's almost like if we have 10 streams of water running to the ocean or to the river, and 9 of those are poison, it's not going to help the river, which eventually is going to be more poison than water, and the ocean is going to suffer. But if we all can at least make a little bit of our stream clean, or make it a little bit more sustainable or more pure in some way, it's going to help the ocean, which, if you want to go down the path of drawing an analogy, I think it's really...
of course.
Yeah, and now, how did you get to this place? I'm very intrigued, because you are an actor as well, and I'm not saying actors are shallow, by no means. I don't want to make such statements, but you seem to have started asking these questions, and I think that's something which the reason I'm asking is because I'm trying to do the same. So how did this path of eventually becoming a coach, and this path is seeking the consciousness and the whatever the word you choose, how did that begin for you, and what sort of shaped that decision?
I always wanted to be in the center of the attention as a child, maybe as a reaction because I did not get enough sustainable love or acceptance. Maybe I just developed the talent that I already had. To be humorous, to be creative, to be joyful, to be extroverted. And so I developed that talent, and I became actor. I did 4 years of acting school.
In Belgium?
In Belgium,
right.
Yeah. And what do you do on acting school? Well, you just act, and you play, and you play, and you play, and you play. And teachers
I watched Kaminsky Method, so I know a little bit about that.
Voila. And so teachers are very tough to say, no, not like this, and so on, and so on, and so on. But of course, you want to prove that you are willing to learn, and so on. Then when I finished that, I played in some TV series and musicals and so on. And to fill the gaps in my planning, in my agenda, I started to do some simulations as an actor during communication trainings. So you had a communication coach with some participants, and the coach taught some techniques to apply. And in order to apply those techniques, they hired an actor. So I could play then I could play the role of during a simulation of your boss or of your colleague who gets on your nerves, and you were, for example, trained to react in a connective but however assertive way, to say, no, this is a boundary for me. And I then, because it was a simulation, it's not real life, I could reflect back, like, if you treat me like this, I feel like this. And I was 100% honest about what I felt on the inside, which is something that rarely happens in real life, especially when the other person is someone who gets on your nerves.
Yeah, yeah. No, it must have given you a lot of insight, right? Because you're playing all these obnoxious characters or whatever.
Yes.
That must be really cool. Yeah.
Exactly. So the art of playing is something that we all know. Some love to play games, some love to play sports, some love to play theater. But playing is something so important. It's creating enthusiasm in yourself for something. Yeah. And on top of that, it gave me insight in others, in myself, and I could learn that there are much more other ways of looking at life than towards my own eyes. And so I saw that the communication trainers with who I worked really could enrich the lives of the people they were working for. And so I decided to become a communication trainer myself. I did various trainings, courses to become more and more experienced in how to help other people. And the biggest present, of course, is the present to myself of deepening my journey and to become a more loving person, which I am absolutely still not as much as I would like it. I judge much more and I reproach much more every day than I would love. But okay,
I think it's fun once in a while. I think I know exactly where you're coming from when you want to be at peace, you want to be more accepting, you want to be more forgiving, you want to be less judgmental. But I think I don't know. I don't have the answers, but I feel when you need to be there, you'll be there.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree that we should also stop judging ourselves for judging.
Yeah.
It's already
it's such why is life so complicated, Frederik? Why can't it
because it helps us to become more anti-fragile. Yeah, and that's sometimes true. Okay to complain about the fact that it's too complicated. That's totally okay.
Yeah. No, it's quite. I mean, I haven't had a celebrity actor, a Belgian celebrity on my podcast, and so I'm really honored to have you. And how is it like the thing? Because we're so caught up, like all celebrities we need to know are from Hollywood, or in India it's Bollywood. But what is it like being an actor and having a following and doing movies or doing whatever you call them, soap operas, whatever you have over there? Is there a big following for like the local actors and the local talent?
For actors, not really that. There's not such a thing as big stars who get followed here everywhere. We're a very tiny country, and there are so many actors, and no, we don't have that idol culture. Okay. Of course, people are having their idols, but not so many Belgians have as an idol an actor, or because the scale here in our country is too small. If I was the singer of Coldplay, or if I were the president of the United States, it's something entirely different. But even this, idolatry, it's a dangerous thing as well, because
I was going to come to that. Can you tell me what you think about that? Because can you tell me why you said it's dangerous? Because I have a few things, but I think we should talk about that before we wind up.
Having an idol is a nice thing if it inspires you for living as your authentic self, a better and more profound, loving way of who you are. But if an idol inspires you to become the idol and to start to behave like the idol, while actually it has nothing to do with you, wow, it's toxic. You get veered away from being yourself, because in a way you think who I am is wrong. I'm not an interesting person.
So you're saying you want to become that person, which, as opposed to looking at what strengths you might have and how the weaknesses you have are good for you. You kind of want to, right.
Yeah, and who has a lot of idols? Well, it are the people who lack confidence in themselves. I don't know.
How did you, in addition to that, right? Earlier we had the really big superstars. I think you and I kind of in the 80s and 90s, we had,
Yes.
we of course had like the actors, and they had the musicians, and of course it was a time of, rock and U2 and then the Backstreet Boys. I don't mean to say this, but we had all these bands, and because there was no internet, it was literally like, whoa, we would go crazy. But now with the internet empowering, with these TikTok and YouTube empowering anyone to become a superstar, you have this new thing of social media influencers, and now when there are not just 1,000 celebrities in a city but 1 million, what do you think it does to the mindset of a teenager or someone in their early 20s who still haven't in some way started their journey?
Again, dangerous. Again, dangerous, because being a star, even when it is a TikTok star, let's be very honest, it's so superficial. The world is not getting a more valuable place by TikTok. It's fun to have maybe 5 minutes per week to watch it, to watch some clips. And if you're popular, that's really cool, but it will not make you a more valuable person. It will only make you a popular person. Nothing wrong with that, but let's not please add value to that, because there is no value in it, to me at least.
Why are people then flocking to it? Because it's not just filled with idiots who don't know it. It's got a lot of smart people on it. Like, I'm not saying on it, but I mean, I'm just trying to understand, because I get what you're saying, and I'm trying to figure out why we are heading more and more in this 8-second consumption, where it's replicating a dance, or it's miming a certain lyrics in the way or the style of a certain celebrity, or whatever it may be, right? Face swapping, or all these things. And it seems like, I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong, but I'm saying we're flocking more, and you've clearly highlighted there is a certain danger to forsake your identity to become someone else, and that's what these things encourage in some sense. I mean, obviously the why is not so easily answered, but
I believe that people do that, we maybe included, because a part of us believes that if we get recognition, acknowledgement from other people, we will become valuable ourselves.
But okay,
and of course that will never happen. That will
exactly
never,
because
ever
if you,
happen.
Frederik, are on TikTok, and you have you want to get recognized, but you're not going to get recognized by what you're saying now, by a heart-to-heart conversation with someone else, but you might get really famous for your rendition of whatever dance is going viral. Now, does that even matter to you? Like, I'm trying to understand, because sometimes you're not even getting popular for the thing that you want to get popular for. Very strange.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I think we should ask psychologists.
Yeah.
And to explain even more, but it has for sure to do with the ego and the belief that others should acknowledge us, and that we believe that if this happens, we will feel more valuable. And of course, it's not the case that it does not bring us any joy.
Yeah.
No, it does bring us any joy. Yeah. And the pitfall is that we confuse joy with this, which is always short term. Joy is confused with happiness and confidence, and it's not. It's the opposite. If we were to
So you're saying joy is more short-lived, or happiness is more short-lived?
Joy is more short-term, and happiness is long-term.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, joy is about receiving. Tell me. Let me ask you, Sandeep, what brings you joy? What gives you joy? What do you like to eat? What do you like to drink?
I like to have a good conversation, eat, I don't know, eat something when I feel like eating that, have a few beers, and maybe listen to some music.
Okay. Let's start. Can I pick one? Because you said various things. Let's say joy for Sandeep is listening to music.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Give me something that is valuable. What is valuable for you? What gives you value? What do you think? Wow, this nourishes me. This makes me a better person.
What gives me value is, I think, sitting these conversations, but also along those lines, I think looking within and trying to ask why I do certain things. So yeah.
Reflecting about yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. So we had enjoying is for Sandeep, listening to music.
Yeah.
And asking yourself some questions is more value related.
Yeah.
Now, which of the two, imagine thinking about yourself for 5 minutes and enjoying music 5 minutes. What will be in 1 month or in even 1 year, what will be more sustainable in terms of, in terms of being sustainable? The 5 minutes of music or the 5 minutes of reflection?
Absolutely, it's going to be
yourself?
the second, right? Because you're putting more thought into your
Exactly.
understanding of yourself.
Exactly.
But it's let
me finish this thought. When I first asked you what gives you joy, your first reaction was a good conversation.
Yeah.
And so a good conversation is, to me, the exact middle of enjoying something. Yeah, it's nice. I love it because it's easy and it connects. And on the other hand, it's valuable. So, of course, valuable things can also be joyful.
Yeah.
But in so many cases, joyful things are not valuable. So
yeah, because if you listen to that song without actually listening, it's just noise,
Exactly.
right? So when you are appreciating your value and you understand where you are, and you just kind of become open. And I think that's really, yeah.
I know even people who listen to a song, they love the song, and because they love the song, they skip and search for another song of the same artist.
Yeah.
So they are listening to a song, and while they are listening to a song of which they say, this is such a good song, they switch to another song, because this shows our addiction to always to have more. When we look on how we scroll on our smartphone, it is the most poisoned thing possible. In America, there are so many lobbies against the weapon lobby, against having the weapon. I think it would become a good idea to also have a lobby to have that other weapon which we all have, the smartphone. To use it in another way. Because last days I was a lot of time on social media because I was a bit bored.
Yeah.
Well, it does not bring me joy. It brings me emptiness. And the more I believe it will bring me joy, the deeper it will put me in emptiness.
No, that is so true. It's sometimes you're almost like scary, like, oh my God, I'm looking at my phone again. But no, Frederik, thanks so much for pointing out this thing, because I mean, there is such a lot of talk out there on how to be happier and how to be things. But I think you broke it down in a really lovely way. So I think thanks so much for everyone listening, and on, I think especially from me, for joining me today and sharing your story and your perspective and taking the time to do this.
It was a pleasure. It was an interesting meeting. I was not really the fullest my best today. I was mourning several times that I could not find the words.
No, you were great.
I'm a bit
Honestly
tired,
speaking.
maybe.
No, you're great. I think.
But the joyful thing is that we had a nice connection, and I want to thank you for your questions, and I want to honor as well your own path and your development and your way to become a more conscious person. I can truly see that, and I really would love to thank you for that. Yeah.
No, I think. Thank you. I mean, I really appreciate those kind words, but I hope our paths intersect again in the near future, whether it's in India or it's in Belgium. And I'm going to hold you to a Stella Artois when I'm in Belgium.
I just wanted to give you the invitation. You have a lifelong ticket now to come to visit me and to stay here. You would be a very welcome guest.
Thank you, my friend. Likewise, I hope to meet you in person soon, and do stay in touch, and good luck with everything you want to do in your life.
Yeah, same goes for you, Sandeep. Thank you so much.
Cheers, brother. Thank you.